It's so weird when we're in our little view. Can I switch us? Yeah, nice. It was bugging me.
Better when you're on that side.
I'm just used to being on that side, So
that means down there in our little logo, you're the dude on the left. Is that right?
I would guess so. Yeah, totally. Totally.
Well, as predicted, right on time, right when we start the podcast, Maple has returned. So,
well, you should let her
allow me to do my dog's bidding. I'll be right
there. You go. Well, that's what you got to do. You got to do the dog's bidding. Absolutely should do it. Let's do share screen.
Well, I feel obligated now that she needs to make a cameo. Come here. Come here. Look. Got the lure with a leftover Slim Jim. Come here. All right.
There she is.
There she is.
She's adorable.
You're getting your 5 minutes of fame, Maple.
There you go, or 5 seconds.
All right, what do you got, Brad?
Well, big news was that Peter Steinberger, the creator of OpenClaw, was hired by OpenAI. So something that was open before will probably not be open anymore because OpenAI doesn't understand the definition of open. They assure everyone that the project will remain independent and be open source still, et cetera, et cetera. But, I have some expectations that they will be building in OpenAI.
Of course. You should look at the stats on GitHub. It's hilarious, man. The number of forks on OpenClaw before this announcement and after this announcement, it added a 0 to the number of forks.
Holy crap. That's crazy.
I got to go get a copy before they take it away.
Everybody's freaking out.
Right. So
that's funny.
Go to the project and then look at look at forks.
37,000.
37,000. The other day it was something like 8.
That's hilarious. That's absolutely hilarious.
The thing is, they're going to leave that there, right?
Of course.
And it's
they'll
not
just
make
their own version.
Right. They're not going to get any more work done on it other than what the community decides to do.
And well, let's talk about that because you and I have been messing with this thing for several days now. I've successfully done some development projects using it. And I've had it help me with a number of other things, but it is constantly breaking. Like it is a nonstop pain in the butt with trying to set up Ollama inferencing. I actually, after our call this morning, got it working. So,
did you?
Well,
Great.
My agent got it working. So I am now talking to it on my Ollama Mac Studio running GLM 4.7 Flash, and it's working pretty well. A little slower, but still working.
So one of the things that I haven't really puzzled out, and it may be one of its tragic failings, is it supports a lot of different models, but it doesn't seem to support a lot of different models at the same time.
No, it really feels like it's a one at a time thing, right?
And that's unfortunate because if I'm doing a particular, I don't want to have to consciously switch models. I'd like to set up some agents or pipelines that say, use this.
There are some guys, I've seen 2 routers. Let me see if I can reopen that window. I've seen 2 routers that do what you're talking about. And
we're spoiled though, man, because you can have bespoke pipelines where you specifically say, I want it to work this way with Kilroy.
Right. For us, inferencing there's not a singular centralized inferencing requirement, right? We can set up multiple LLMs on multiple components of a swarm, pipelines, whatever. So it makes a huge difference in our ability to.
So I don't want to steal your thunder, but you just said something that made me remember an earlier discussion. Are you planning on talking about the rate limiting?
No, go for it.
So well, it's your story because you noticed it, but it's already happening across multiple cloud AI service providers that they're either disallowing or they're rate limiting access to their LLMs by OpenClaw.
Right, because it's using so much, right? So I have a synthetic account, synthetic.new account, and they have a very generous $60 a month package. And there's a lot of models to choose from on that site. I loved how it works. It was seamless. It was working beautifully. And then all of a sudden the other day, it started spitting out that I'd been rate limited. And so my agents were going offline because there's no LLM for them to interact with. And I will say that in OpenClaw, there's a fallback, but I had set my fallbacks to synthetic. Oh, actually, no, I had set my fallbacks to Anthropic. So
yeah,
that failed. And that's why, that's the other reason that people are getting frustrated is Anthropic is blocking OpenClaw. Just flat out blocking.
So here again is another example of why centralized LLMs are not the end game here.
Yep.
Because if I've got a mission critical dependency on a cloud-based LLM and the cloud provider decides they don't want me using their service for whatever reason, rate limited, I'm a competitor, I'm from a geographical area that they don't care about, price of tea in China, I don't know what, right? They can cut off your service, period, and you are hosed, right?
That's right.
You know, if you can
it's like OpenAI coming out with memory. Well, do you really want all of your memory stored on their servers?
Well, now they're gonna make a cloud-based version of OpenClaw for everybody who can't figure out how to run this hobby project on their desktop.
Yep.
Right. And they're going to do that, and they're going to make it available. And then they're going to say, well, you need to give us your Telegram bot IDs, and you need to give us your login credentials for WhatsApp, and you need to give us access to your iMessage stuff. And why don't you just sign into your Apple account while you're at it? And it's going to end up being a bigger data grab than they already are, because now they're going to get credentials along with your demographic data and your personal usage.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It just doesn't seem like it plays out in the long run as a viable strategy, because it's such a single point of failure. We were talking about it the other day. I mean, they're just setting this up for it to be real world Mr. Robot, right?
Right.
You know, Evil Corp is going to have sucked in all your data and all your finances, and then somebody's going to hack it and it's going to die and the world ends.
That's right. That's right. Totally agree. Totally agree. This is one of the routers I found, by the way, Nadir Claw. It works with Olama. I haven't tested it yet. But
is that how you got Olama hooked in, or did you use something?
No, I had my agent actually configure, but I had to beat it like, I don't know, 8 different rounds of interactions for it to get it right. It kept breaking it.
Well,
and that's how, and I was pointing him to the OpenClaw documentation for configuring models. Like, it shouldn't be more difficult than that. And even he couldn't figure out the JSON structure. Like, he was like, you know.
Well, I mean, your experience trying to get that working is a parallel to my, you know, from Kilroy's perspective, OpenClaw is a fancy LLM, right?
Yep.
It's just another producer consumer in one of our swarms and pipelines, right?
Yep.
And so the logical thing for us to do to interact with it is to hook it up to the swarm.
Yep.
So I spent a good chunk of the weekend trying to build what should have been a very simple, straightforward channel plugin for OpenClaw, right? Let's just write a little bit of TypeScript and let's glue Kilroy to OpenClaw using the channel plugins, and it'll look just like a chat user to OpenClaw, and OpenClaw will look like a LLM in a swarm to Kilroy.
Right.
Dude, I can't tell you how much time I wasted, A, trying to figure out their inscrutable documentation, and B, there's no sample code that works, right? Everything that's their sample code has all been generated by OpenClaw. So if you look at the Telegram channel or the WhatsApp channel or the IRC channel, or you pick it, the code was not written by a human, right?
No.
You can't follow it. You can't find it. You can't duplicate the design pattern. You can't find the API calls. They're not documented, right? There's no, it's just not there. And I literally wasted 2 days this weekend with some seriously agent augmented time trying to get it to build something. And I got to tell you, and this is the truth, Copilot in Visual Studio Code made a better, more functional chat plugin than OpenClaw did for itself.
Nice.
right? And that's kind of interesting. It tells me two things, right? It's Copilot is doing a good job of finding recent API data and content and examples on the internet,
Right.
Because if it was just relying on model training, it's not going to have anything about OpenClaw in it.
Of course.
Right. But the flip side of that is why doesn't OpenClaw ship with some kind of parameterizable or modifiable template that the agents know about to build the extensions that it works with?
Of course. It's ridiculous that they didn't, like, at the very least say, okay, yeah, here's how you connect to us. I mean, that's a primary consideration. But look, I mean, you know, I posted the other day that on the inferencing thing with Olama, that I was just astounding to me that this was an open source project that didn't have Olama as a provider in the interface. And I don't, you know, I mean, you could do the conspiracy theory thing of, well, he was negotiating with centralized providers like Anthropic and OpenAI for who was going to pay him the most to come on board. And so he wasn't inclined to connect to local providers, but it just seems like insanity that he didn't. So it's going to be real interesting to see if this becomes a foundation of some kind, managing the open source project, what they, you know, is going to be one of the goals to really make this thing function properly, because they're starting with this mashed together pile of apps and connections that is obviously not stable, right? We love what it's capable of. And that's why we're going to take some of the conceptual stuff and apply it to agents in Kilroy. But we can do that, you know, any day of the week. And we really don't need OpenClaw to do that. But we think that, you know, obviously there's some things here that work. And so we want to make sure we capture that. But I'm just kind of curious whether they're going to actually try to make this thing more industrial strength, or if they're just going to let it be a mess.
Well, so here's the thing. And I don't want to sound like I'm doing this or you're doing this, or this is a concerted effort to throw shade on OpenClaw, because what it's really good for, if you get all of the past all the hype and all the excitement and froth and all the people who aren't real technical software engineers who are doing reasonable stuff with it and are excited by that, the reality of it is that what they've come up with are some architectural concepts that are useful, right? The way that the memory works, the way that the agents pipelines are spawned, the way that they track state, the overall flow through the system is some new stuff, right? We've been stuck in a weird holding pattern with web-based user interfaces to cloud-based LLMs that are trying to jack around with tool calling with special response syntax triggering MCP servers, right? And that's been the last year. And as we know, that's not how you do proper pipelines. That's not how you're going to automate enterprise-grade, trusted, repeatable tasks. And OpenClaw is at least a push on the Ouija board for the larger industry in the right direction. Right? I think the implementation is tragically bad, right? I think it's not something that you could roll out as a commercial grade enterprise application that you would want to base your money-making business on, because you can't be guaranteed on any given day that the code that you told it to run last week is what it's running today or what it's going to run tomorrow. And you have no way to do configuration management or version control or compliance testing or reliability testing or penetration testing or anything against this weird inscrutable pile of agent generated stuff, right? That's the end of the day summary, is that it's a great hobby project. You can use it on your desktop as a personal agent. You can learn from it. You can make cool things with it. Any business that tries to build on this is going to be just as frustrated as we've been over the last couple of days trying to make it do real stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're highly technical people, and especially you, and the fact that we are beating our head against the wall, you know, makes it all the more probabilistic that they're going to have issues going forward. Oh, you made me think of something and now I lost it. Anyway, but we do have the industrial strength, enterprise level capability, and so we'll build the functionality in. But there is, like you said, there is value in what they did, and that's what we've been saying for a couple of years now, right? We don't have to get to like LLMs that get you AGI level superhuman capability. We just have to have the tools and the platform around it that makes it feel enough like it, that it's getting things actually done for you. And it's got to be stable. It's got to be something that, isn't breaking every 5 minutes and isn't making you frustrated. This thing is lucky that it has enough. It can show you enough potential that you will continue to beat your head against the wall to try to make it work.
It's a ray of hope for the overall. There's a lot of skeptical. Oh gosh, the AI bubble's going to pop. Blah blah blah. Because I think people have seen it plateau. Right. Oh well, there's only so much term paper writing I can do before I'm done with, open AI. There's only so much stuff that ChatGPT can do with telling me a story at bedtime.
Right.
And wrapping proper tooling around these things and using them as one part of a bigger picture is kind of the right answer. I'll tell you, there was an interesting thread on Reddit that has been going for a while where somebody posed the, sort of a leading question of what is this thing really good for? Right? What can I really do with it? Now that's sort of been the discussion around the whole LLM thing in general, but it was really interesting to see what popped up in that discussion. And, people had all sorts of little hobby grade things that they were doing with it. And it really boiled down to two things. The two things were the insert your name of your local agent here, whether it's Siri or Alexa or Cortana or Hey Google or whatever, right? Doesn't meet power user, end user needs. Right? None of those things are flexible enough and capable enough to do the sorts of things that people really want to do and expect to do on their computers. Right. The agent that you're given is rigid. It's limited in what it can interact with. I think Alexa is probably the most open platform in terms of being able to be extensible, but it's probably the least capable in terms of, the speech intents are all rigid. You've got to say things exactly right. It doesn't really do NLP. It just matches up some words that you said to some text patterns, and if it matches, it does the thing.
Right.
And Kilroy's had an Alexa interface for pre-COVID time, right? I mean, I think we had that working for some demos back in 2019, and so it's not a big deal. But people are frustrated. Here we are, 10 years now into the age of voice-controlled agents, and they still don't do anything meaningful. I'm not going to call an Uber with Siri. Right? It's not going to happen. I'm not going to order pizza with it, and I'm not going to tell Amazon to re-up my laundry detergent order.
Right.
So being able to have it do things like go out and check my email and put things in the calendar, or find out, what my kids are doing this weekend based on message traffic, or any of those things where it's more ad hoc and it's more customized to how you're using your system is exciting. And I get why people are motivated about that. And it should be a wake-up call to all those people that are providing those into the network agents, whether it's Siri or Alexa or whatever, right?
Yep.
So the other thing that was in that thread, which was interesting, was people expressing, oh, this is giving me a way to have a social network that's tailored to my family, right? I can see what the kids are doing. I can forward things to my parents. My grandparents can drop in and see stuff that I couldn't have otherwise made available to them, whether it's because you don't know how to run a web server or you don't have a service online that does it or whatever. People were really excited about the idea that this could finally stitch together a social graph that was more personable and more meaningful. But the next breath was, but I hate that I have to use Facebook or Instagram or, you pick the social network to do it. I hate it. And so it's kind of funny because I know we've been talking about it's really, really easy to set up private social interactions with the swarms in Kilroy. You can have private chat with whoever you want to add into it. You can share pictures, you can share files. It's all lurking right below the surface. And so well, hook a little bit of agent stuff up here, and here's probably the dream app for 90% of the retail market.
Absolutely. Well, and that's absolutely the truth. I tweeted out the other day that, it's time for us to be able to control the social networks, not have to worry about our data anymore, not being, fed whatever ads the algorithm thinks we need to be fed, not listening to what we're saying around our phones or other devices in our house, and then serving us ads based on the stuff we're saying. It's just time for that to happen. Essentially, it's time for people to be able to build their own internet instead of using the one that they're fed. And I think that's one of the primary things that we don't talk about a lot with Kilroy is that you can create any internet you want. and you can connect with anybody you want, and you can have private networks, you can have public networks. So it really solves that problem as well for people. And, I can see all kinds of use cases where an AI is helping to manage that, or a family is in a swarm and it's interacting and helping everybody complete tasks and get stuff done. I think there's a ton of possibilities for that.
So I don't want to chase this rabbit just yet, because I know you got stuff queued up in those tabs, but we do need to come back to the other nice side effect is some of the tech that's rolled out in our discussion about SQLite as memory.
Oh yeah, cool. Absolutely. All right. I'm just going to hit a couple of other things and we'll get into that. So I thought this was interesting. If you are trying out OpenClaw and all you have is the Mac that you use every day, don't, unless you do something like this. This is a really cool, utilizes the new container technology that Apple has put into their Mac OS, and automatically deploys virtual machines that are already set up with OpenClaw, and you can utilize it, and then you don't have to worry about your local machine files and settings getting borked by whatever agent you create in OpenClaw. So this thing is called Clawbox. Pretty cool. It's on GitHub, github.com/Josh Avant made it. So check it out. Let's see if there's anything else here that's important. Oh, this was interesting. So this guy somehow has like a food truck economic simulator platform of some kind. I don't know if he's in the food truck industry or what, but he gave 12 LLMs $2,000 in a food truck, in a virtual food truck, and only 4 survived. 8 went into bankruptcy. While I see a ton of posts on X about everybody saying, "Oh, I made $10,000 a month this month with my OpenClaw implementation," blah blah blah. The reality is it's a lot harder to create a business expert agent than you might think.
Post bank account statements, or it didn't happen, right?
Exactly. So this is something you and I were talking about earlier. The memory chip shortage is going to be a huge problem, and we're not going to be worrying about electricity costs anymore. We're going to be worrying about being able to up the RAM on our machines or buy machines with high RAM. And it's even worse because, we're Apple guys and they already charge a bloody fortune for RAM. So I guess they have it built in, so they don't have to. Maybe they won't increase it.
It's like the airlines hedging jet fuel futures, right? You're going to pay the same price whether it's $20 a barrel or $200 a barrel, because they've already bought it 10 years in advance. Exactly. So anyway, evidently, all of the largest AI centralized providers are hoarding every piece of RAM they can get their hands on, and I've seen it worse. I've seen several reports that are saying, well, like companies like Steam, they make their Steam Box thing, which is a really cool gaming handheld that you can play.
Yeah, Zach has one of those.
Right. Okay. So nice machine, nice price point, and somebody ran the numbers and said they're going to have to stop making them because they're not going to be able to get the RAM because they don't sell in the quantities that let them be power buyers, and it's going to price it over $1,000, and people are going to stop buying it. And their prediction was that's the type of company that's going to go out of business, out of the hardware business in the next 12 months, because of this. That
makes a ton of sense. I hadn't even thought about somebody like that. Or you think about all the guys that are creating. I mean, I've seen probably 10, 15 different AI focused hardware devices that are coming out for the home. Well,
I mean, I've got a bunch of little gadgets, right? All sorts of devices. Where's my stupid Flipper Zero? That's got RAM in it.
It's like how long can those guys sustain themselves? Because you're right, they can't buy, and even somebody as big as Steam is not going to be a big enough buyer of RAM to make it cost effective.
And so it's a lot of the system on a chip users where it's all integrated in one place, and the RAM's on the chip and the CPU's on the chip and the data connections are on the chip and all that stuff. That's not going to be as big an issue. It's the people that have to use the discrete components. Point of sale terminals. Oh, they're hosed, man. What's Square going to do for their new little tablet, right?
Yeah.
Things like that. They're just not going to get it.
Yep. That's painful. So the upside to that is though that, well, not if they're vibe coding, but there was a time when hardware constraints created some of the best programmers in the world. If you look at Russia and Asia, and people that grew up with machines that were not top of the line at the time.
Software developers here in the US that are of a couple of generations ago still don't write like they've got unlimited RAM. And you look at stuff like, you get a stable full of engineers, and somewhere along the continuum from senior graybeards all the way down to 1 year new hires, there's a switch where it's like, what do you mean I got to worry about memory?
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Well, the beauty is Kilroy runs on a Raspberry Pi,
right.
and our ability to swarm LLMs means that that could be a shared resource.
Not everybody has to run one. That's right.
Exactly. It can be something that a corporation has available and they put into a swarm. It can be something that groups of friends get together and buy a high-end Mac Studio and utilize the processor and RAM from that. I mean, there's a million opportunities to save without paying a centralized provider.
I wish we stumble upon a corporate partner that really wants to try this, because I know in a lot of the big companies that I've worked in, there are 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 desktop computers in the office running a screensaver all day long.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Or Solitaire or Minesweeper. Right. Yep. And a copy of Kilroy running in the background, and every 10th machine has an LLM on it. It doesn't even have to be every one. But they're all swarmed together. Now I've got a rack of 100 or 200 or 500 LLMs at the disposal of my entire business, right? Yep, and instead of buying $50 a month licenses to OpenAI for every employee, just use the hardware that you've already got.
That's exactly right. Absolutely. All right, you wanted to circle back to what?
So one of the things that it's interesting, we talked about it. Then I saw a couple of rumors online, and then saw a really interesting discussion that basically said RAG and vector databases are dead.
Right.
And the way that we got there is that for a long time, we've used markdown documents as knowledge repositories, whether it's you using LogSeq to keep human readable notes, or it's us putting notes in markdown format that the agents in Copilot can read and use to interpret what you're doing with the code or whatever. People have been doing that for a while. And Markdown's not the best format for that because it's not very structured. I mean, we've talked about YAML versus Markdown and what you get and what you don't get.
Right.
But okay, Markdown's human readable and it's also machine readable. That's great. The problem is that at some point you end up with, I don't know, how many Markdown files do you think you have in your LogSeq system?
Oh, 3,000 to 4,000.
Right. Okay. So if I've got to ask an LLM to distill some knowledge out of my LogSeq repository, am I really going to load all 3,000 documents into the context and have it try to fish through those every single request? But that's what a lot of people are doing. That's what large parts of OpenClaw are doing, right? It's writing notes to itself, Visual Studio Code with Copilot, writing notes to itself, and every single query that you do loads that into the context, burns those tokens, and uses that huge blob of data to do one precise question.
And then locks up because you've killed the context.
Right. So, and then it's got to re-summarize context that it was already a summary.
Yep.
Right. So it's stupid. And I guess if you're a cloud service provider, you love the fact that people are eating way more tokens than they should.
Sure.
But we've had tech for a long time, just regular plain old SQL databases that have some form of free text search in them. And that's been everything from MySQL or SQLite all the way up to high-end stuff like Postgres or, Oracle or whatever. They all have the ability to search across all the records in the database and find the records that contain some string, some set of strings, whatever it is that you're looking for. So rather than sort of pre-chew all your data and load it into a vector database as a bunch of embeds that you can use later when you use a RAG system, right? That's only going to get the terminology that you used when you vectorized those documents, right? It's only going to get the static stuff that's in there. And it doesn't let you do joins between the documents. If one document talks about something and uses a special terminology and another one uses a different phrase for the same thing, you're not going to necessarily find that they're the same thing. And so we were talking about, well, why not load all those Markdown documents into a SQL database, right? Now you can do queries against them and only return the records that have pertinent info in them and only make the context of the LLM load 2 or 3 documents instead of 20 or 30 or 200 or 300, right? And it was funny because not an hour or two after we had that discussion, here's a thread in the in the OpenClaw, no, it was Olama forum on Reddit, basically saying, why would you ever use a vector database again? If you can use SQLite behind your local LLM to index all your documents and run queries against it before you load your context, why would you ever hassle with preloading a RAG database and using that? So we've been watching failed, evolutionary attempts along the way fall by the wayside. RAG is dead any day now, right? People are going to switch over to use MCP. We've watched MCPs. Who cares, right? Why we don't call tools with MCP? We call tools with natural language between the agents, right?
Exactly.
The tools are smart enough to say, oh, you're looking for the weather, let me go find it. Or you're looking for a crypto price, or you're looking for data from a document on disk. I am a smart enough tool to go do that without requiring an LLM to tell me.
Exactly.
Right? And the whole idea that I've got to have some rigidly structured JSON API and I've got to pass data in just the right format. And I've got to be a DevOps manager and run 20 different microservices. So I've got 20 different tools. It's silly, right? Yep. I'm just going to hop in a swarm and I don't know what's out there. I'm going to ask, anybody know what the temperature is outside? Somewhere there's an agent or somewhere there's a tool that can answer that question. I don't need to have added that to my
exactly.
So it's really interesting to see how every time there's this incremental leap, if you will, in functionality, where we've gone from web-based user interfaces, now we've got some proper agentic interface with OpenClaw. The previous stuff just looks stupid and old and antiquated, and why would I have ever done it that way?
Yeah. Well, it's the learning evolution, I guess, but you're absolutely right. And it makes a huge difference in optimizing everything you do, right? From the perspective of the token usage, from the perspective of performance and speed, being able to just search that database and find what you need is far, far better. So it makes a huge difference. I actually had my agent start using logseq as the memory. And what I have to tell it to do is take every, and it's not on my existing logseq installation. It's a brand new one. It's a fresh one, right? But I have to tell him, as part of his model, to figure out and parse out pieces of this so we don't end up with gigantic monolithic markdown files, because otherwise it's just pointless. Why bother with it, right?
So we'll have to have a side discussion sometime about you referring to it as him and me referring to it as it.
I like giving it a personality. It's fun. All right. Well, that's all I got today, man.
Well, that's great, man. I'm going to go back to trying to make my plugin work.
Hey, if you want to play with Kilroy, reach out to us, B05 on Farcaster, B05 Crypto on Telegram and Twitter, and Chuck is C Shotton everywhere. So we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
All right, man.